I cannot believe this is actually happening with Dior. I'm sure you've heard about the Dior scandal, but if you haven't, Dior had been allegedly sending work to firms where workers were severely mistreated. And apparently this is not news because according to investigators, a lot of luxury brands have been outsourcing their production to very questionable suppliers in order to maximize profit. And very sadly, these suppliers often underpay their workers. I'll talk more about that later, but let's dive into the Dior scandal first. Now, I used to think Dior represented elegance and quality. I mean, this is the brand that designed the very iconic Lady Dior bag for Princess Diana. I only have one Dior piece in my collection right now, and this is the Lady Dior Medium, and this was purchased about 12 years ago. I did have another Dior bag, which was the Dior Promenade Flap, and I bought that one about 9 years ago. Before this scandal, I actually had a very good impression of Dior as a luxury brand. In fact, their customer service was always incredible, and I haven't had any issues with the two Dior bags I purchased. Now Dior, or rather the LVMH group that owns Dior, Fendi, Louis Vuitton and many other luxury brands, has always advertised that their pieces are made by professional craftsmen in ateliers. So imagine the disappointment and the anger when people found out that these Dior pieces were actually made in factories where workers were taken advantage of. From my research, these factories or firms are based near Milan and they are Chinese-owned. There were 32 employees and apparently 2 of them were illegal immigrants, while 7 others did not have the right documentation. This means they had really cut down on the production cost. To give you some context, it only costs $57 to produce a luxury bag that sells for $2,700. The thing is, the price is not even the main issue here. I think most people are more shocked regarding the aspect of workers' exploitation and how these luxury items were actually made behind the scene. You see, regardless of the luxury brands, the cost of raw materials is actually very low, especially if you compare it to what the brand is charging us. I think most of us are aware of this, but when we buy a luxury bag, we are not just paying for the bag. Most of the time, you're also paying for the brand's heritage. Some people also go for designer brands because supposedly these luxury items are made by professional artisans who are getting paid fairly. And of course, we also appreciate the sense of reassurance that when we buy from a reputable luxury brand, the luxury item we buy will come with a certain level of quality. And to think these pieces were actually made by workers who didn't even have their basic needs taken care of is just so wrong and sad. As we speak, the representatives of LVMH group that owns Dior have yet to make comments about this situation. I'm actually quite looking forward to their official statement because what can they possibly say to make this even make sense? I also wonder if they will continue to stay in silence. From what I understand, Dior is not facing criminal charges for outsourcing their production. However, the same cannot be said about the factories that exploited their workers. In fact, the investigation is mainly about that aspect, and I think that's how this whole Dior scandal broke out in the first place. However, even if Dior is not facing any legal actions, it's very challenging to not see Dior in a completely different light now. For example, South Korea customers are the biggest luxury shoppers in the world, and many of them said they were interested in Dior before, but certainly not anymore. A lot of them also rushed to return their Dior handbags, which were purchased less than 7 days ago. This scandal really makes you question the transparency of all luxury brands. You see, a lot of luxury items are made in Italy. In fact, Italy accounts for 50 to 55% of all the luxury items made globally. And when you have a handbag that says it's made in Italy, you tend to think it's a creation by a professional artisan who works in a very clean and welcoming setting, not someone who is in a very vulnerable position. Years ago, when I was doing research about the Lady Dior bag, I came across a video where a Dior artisan showed how he made a Lady Dior bag from start to finish. And I remember I was amazed by the whole process because there was so much attention and care that went into making the bag. And it really did seem like the artisan thoroughly enjoyed creating the bag. But this scandal just painted a completely different picture. In the last week, I've been looking at different sources, but I couldn't find any information regarding how long Dior has been outsourcing their production. And considering I've not bought anything from Dior in over 10 years, I'm really curious if their quality has been declining since the outsourcing. In fact, I wonder if anyone could tell that there's been a difference in terms of Dior's craftsmanship. So please let me know down below if you have anything to share. Now, I'm not sure about the background of these workers. Maybe they are actually very skilled, but they're just underpaid. That said, even if they are very good with what they do, it doesn't sound like the production was monitored by anyone from Dior in any way. So I really wonder if we've been giving luxury brands too much credit. Perhaps this whole idea of luxury items is just an illusion created by luxury brands. I mean, if this scandal didn't break out, perhaps we would still be thinking highly of Dior as a reputable luxury brand in the industry. And because of that, we happily pay for overpriced pieces. For example, in the last few years, the Dior book totes have been doing really well. These bags cost about £2,500. It's a lot of money for a canvas bag with no leather whatsoever. But because it's Dior and because of the attractive campaign and the high price point, customers happily pay for these bags. The truth is, when we buy a luxury bag for £3,000, we tend to think the bag itself is worth £3,000. But really, a lot of what we pay goes to feed the campaigns, the advertisements, the expensive rent, the fancy packaging, and even the champagne we don't get to drink. You probably already know that anyway, but the fact that Dior was so desperate to cut costs in the wrong place is just unbelievable. In the foreseeable future, I can anticipate a drop in sales for Dior. But will Dior go down as a luxury brand? I don't think so, because the LVMH group has more than enough funding to sustain Dior through this crisis. And just like any other scandals, people tend to forget and move on after a while. The sad thing is, Dior is not the outlier here. Apparently, many luxury brands have been outsourcing their production to cut costs and maximize profit. For example, Giorgio Armani was put under investigation earlier this year for working with subcontractors who underpaid their workers. And we're talking about 2 to 3 euros an hour. And these workers have to work for 10 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. And to give you some context, an Armani's bag was made at the cost of 90 euros, resold to Armani for 250 euros, and then put on the market for 1,800 euros for customers like me and you to buy. So we're talking about a profit margin of 86% when the bag wasn't even made by anyone directly linked to the brand. Now, I usually try to stay away from heavy and sensitive topics because I want this to be a place where people can just come to chill and relax. But I think it's important to be aware of certain news just so we can be a more conscious consumer. For example, after doing some research, I've decided to not buy from Dolce & Gabbana because I feel like they are quite disrespectful to cultures different to their own. And then there's Balenciaga. In 2022, they had a very questionable campaign involving children, and since then I haven't been wearing my Balenciaga mini city bag, and I haven't been browsing anything to do with Balenciaga either. As with Dior, I'm quite disappointed with this whole situation, and so I don't think I'll be buying from them for a long time. I'm interested to know if you are a loyal Dior customer, and if so, what are your thoughts about this development? Would you still buy from Dior? And what do you think they can do to come back from this crisis? And if you own any Dior pieces, would you feel comfortable wearing them, knowing what they've done? Please have a respectful conversation down below. Thank you so much for being here. Take care, and I will see you soon.